Yes.
With tax sharing, you mentioned some percentages. I know it's early, but what template are you working from? Can you explain that a little bit? I've heard 60% and 40% used, depending on if you're the community that creates the economic project or if you're an outside community. Can you explain a little bit how potentially that could work, the formula for tax sharing?
All of us can address that, but we're going to take our turns here.
Well, first I want to emphasize that we made a fundamental shift to focus on land use and regional planning because the focus on the revenue sharing is an overemphasis on that is an inaccurate characterization of what we've learned. So I just want to emphasize that. The model we've looked at would take 40% of the growth in tax base. We're talking about real estate, and we're only talking about commercial and industrial property. So the growth in the tax base, which is an increase in the value of the property subject to the tax in a community, 40% would go into a regional pool of tax base. That would then be redistributed to communities based on a formula that would, the result of that would be to reduce the, over time, the disparity between those communities that have a low tax base and those that have a extremely high tax base. It never brings them to a parity, but it incorporates into the rules of the region a system by which development in Richfield is beneficial to the city of Cleveland. The development in the city of Cleveland is beneficial to Parma, so that we all receive some benefit from growth in the region. Now, back to your point, what even caused us to consider this? Part of what caused us to even think about trying to do this is the war that presently exists between communities in competition to take malls or businesses away from one another. We all observe this going on all the time. We're all subject to it all the time. We're not just looking from the outside at a situation going on. Each of us deal with the prospect of another community giving tax incentives for a company or employees moving out of my community to another community. And businesses come to me and are often upset if I don't offer some attractive incentive program for them to move from Parma to Richfield, or Strongsville to Richfield, or Akron to Richfield. And that is the environment that exists. The environment creates an unhealthy competition between communities, and all we're doing is moving businesses from one community to another within the region. And we give tax money away just so we can trade companies from one community to the other. And as we observe that, we begin to think that there's something not logical about all this. So how do we address that? That's a problem. And there's almost universal agreement that that is a problem. So it raises a question, what do you do about that? What do you do about that? Our first thought was, using the Minneapolis-St. Paul model, we saw that they did revenue sharing. And our thought was, well, if you do revenue sharing, then everybody benefits, and that will reduce the competition. But as we got into it, we realized that alone does not, it's not adequate just to come up with some sharing of revenue. If we're not thinking together and planning together, each community does comprehensive plans, and we're all proud of the fact that we do it. And we do that so that development in our community happens on a balanced manner, and certain things happen here and here, and our communities then have a quality to them. Well, we don't do that as a region, and it's not rational. We don't plan for balanced and proper economic development as a region. In the same way that each community does that, we need to figure out a way to do that on a regional basis too. That doesn't mean And that's through a process of thinking, collaborating, talking. When individual communities do comprehensive plans, they talk, they sit down, they gather data. They think about what the development patterns are. They think of what they want to be as a community down the road. And they try to chart a course to achieve that. We don't do that as a region. Well, is that an acceptable condition? It's not an acceptable condition in our view. And that, to me, it's intuitive that that's dysfunctional. So the goal here is not just to solve an isolated problem. In our analysis, it seems to me that we've realized that there are structural problems that create these end results of competition, unhealthy competition, and we're trying to address the structural problems, which have to do with getting together, planning, and then secondarily, perhaps revenue sharing to supplement that planning process. I know it all sounds a little, complex in a certain sense, but in another sense, we have a complex system. Each community has income tax, they have real estate tax, all kinds of different taxes. We've got jet agreements all over. We've got a fight over the Avon interchange. That's all pretty complicated. Well, we need to get to a better level of intelligence about what we're doing. Can we do it? Well, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But I think it can be done. But we cannot do it if we don't begin to go down a road of defining a planning process and encouraging existing planning entities to get a broader view and broaden our scope of understanding and analysis. Because this does not presume that we have answers to things. What we're trying to get to a point is where we begin to ask the right questions. We're not even asking the right questions yet. So we're trying to move to a place where we have dialogue, we ask questions, and we begin to gather data to answer questions. So everybody would like to have the answers. But that's why we never get the answers. It's because we think it's easy, and we haven't established the processes we need.
So the bottom line of your question is this. We still have to figure out the exact formula. That's part of phase 2. But this is the bottom line. There are no winners and losers. We're talking about the revenue sharing of the increase, and so there's nobody losing anything. It is a sharing as far as what the gains are, and nothing taking nothing away. Just want to clarify that.